Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com. Join us at the Sonic Cinema Patreon at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema if you haven't already. For $3 and more, you'll get content like my very first attempt at an audio commentary from 2003, which is basically for select scenes from American Pie 2. There's a reason for that I explain at Patreon, and it is exclusive to Patreon, is now available on Sonic Cinema. It's never been available on Sonic Cinema, and I talk a little bit about why that is, as well as some more stuff on my music, as well as the upcoming book. So that's patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by a couple of filmmakers who have sent me their work recently. A couple of films they've worked on is Sunset and The Depth. You can read the reviews for those on Sonic Cinema. And the director of both of those is Jamison Locascio, and also, I talk with the composer on both of the films, as well as the screenwriter on Sunset, Ambrosio. So I hope you enjoy the interview that I had with Jamison and Adam. I'm very pleased to be joined today by a couple of filmmakers who've sent me a couple of films in the past month or two that I've had a chance to watch and review, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Jamison Locascio and Adam Ambrosio. Thank you for joining me today, guys.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
First thing I wanted to ask is what inspired you to get into filmmaking?
Oh, that's a good question. I think really, I started. I think we both have different stories on this, but I guess I started really when I was younger, like Adam did as well, and I really started by editing little videos for my family and doing like vacation videos and stuff like that. That was the first time I started really picking up a camera and using it, and that sort of started to transition me into making short films. I really started making stuff for YouTube originally, which is funny because that's what Adam and I do on a professional, really more of a professional basis now, which is also what inspired Sunset.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's kind of the real basics of how I started out before I met these guys, who I think really helped bring my filmmaking to a whole nother level that I couldn't have done on my own. Adam, you want to talk about your beginnings too? I think that's
No, it started when I was a kid. My dad would bring me to every movie possible, or even let me watch movies that I like rated R movies like Aliens and whatnot on VHS. And my dad is also in the business, so I was able to occasionally go on one of the sets. And so as like a 5-year-old kid, going on a movie set and being in this world of movies all the time, it just seemed right, and that's what I love doing.
You were on some cool sets as a kid too. Adam was on some cool sets.
Yeah.
I forget which ones they were, but
yeah, I was on the set of Face Off when
Face Off, yeah,
back a while ago.
This is really cool.
It was cool because
wow.
they showed me how to all the sugar glass and whatnot, and all the props, and it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it started when I was a kid, pretty much.
Yeah, I always thought that was cool.
Okay, all right. So we got a little bit about I guess we did get a little bit of both of your backgrounds. What filmmakers have inspired you over the years?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot. I want to say that the first time I had really an epiphany, it was like a definitive moment of saying, wow, this is a little beyond just going to a movie theater and enjoying something. I saw Inception,
Okay.
and I felt that what Christopher Nolan was doing in that film, and I think it was really especially the hallway scene where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is fighting and he's bouncing around the walls and everything else, that it really hit me that I was like, you know what? I want to do that, whatever it would take. I would like to thrill people or to excite them to the same level that Nolan did to me, where I was sitting there watching it saying, I actually have no idea how the hell they're doing that. And it blew my mind. So that was one of the first things. I'd really say Christopher Nolan was the first one that really grabbed me into a different realm, which was being sort of a passive observer, into suddenly saying, how are they doing that? And to ask those questions, which I think are really the basis of wanting to be a filmmaker. So really Nolan, I would say, primarily.
Okay.
Yeah, no. For me, it wasn't really any directors or producers or actors, really. It was just how the movies came together. I mean, I'm a big fan of Carpenter. I like Nolan. Other than that, it's pretty much it's really just solely the people that make the movie and how they all communicate together, and how they pretty much take all these minds and then put them into one kind of vessel. And so that really, it was like all the classics, Carpenter, and just the big movies that people see.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit into the film that you guys worked on, Sunset, which when are people going to be able to watch that?
So we have a great distribution team that's headed by Eric Doctorow and the team at Random Media, who has also connected us, and we work with Sony through them and The Orchard, and they've given us an official release date of July 3rd, and that's going to be on Amazon immediately, iTunes, that says Amazon Prime, iTunes. It'll be DVD probably a week after its launch, Vudu, Google Play, Xbox, which we never expected, but Xbox as well, which is very cool. There's a lot of other ones as well that I'm probably just forgetting to name. Fandango now, and then they start to they take it from there and keep pushing it to other platforms as well.
Okay. Well, and thank you very much for the early in advance chance to see the movie. I really appreciate it, and it was really an interesting movie for me to watch. And in my review, I mentioned a particular movie that I've watched over the years that has really it feels very much in the same vein of Sunset, but it's definitely a very different take on it. And before we get into that, where did you guys come up with the idea for Sunset as a as the creative process went?
Yeah, what's great is that I did not come up with this concept, which I love, because it was presented to me, and I said, "Oh, wow, that's great," which is so rare. But what happened was Adam and I were making Film Valor, which is our YouTube channel where we talk about our behind the scenes and what we do and everything else. And Adam came to me and said, "I have a great idea, which I want to let him expand upon, his thought process on that." But that was really how it started. I have a great idea about, basically the end of the world scenario about, an older couple, and he already had in mind the actors that he wanted to play them. We had worked with them in the past, and I just immediately thought that was fascinating. But I want to let Adam answer the rest of that, because I don't know, that came from him completely.
Yeah. So when we were doing Film Valor, we were talking about concepts that we wanted to do, and Jamison told me a while ago when he was younger that he made this like apocalyptic movie with his friends, and so we were like, all right, end of the world, I started thinking like end of the world, that could be cool, but should be action, with a big budget, or or at least spending a good amount of money that we don't have, and or just making it something that could work. And so I did a lot of thinking like end of the world, what could it be? And I said, well, in a lot of end of the world movies, it's always the younger generation or the younger people going forth and, replanting the world, or just going forth and doing what they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what happens to the older people? What happens to the people that can't go forth? And, they have to kind of accept it in a sense. I said, who cares? What's their story? Are they going to be lonely? Are they going to be filled with family and comfort? And the thing is, especially if in reality you don't know what people are going to do. So I thought, how would an older couple feel?
Mm-hmm.
How would the generation react to a tragedy like this?
Mhm.
Imminent doom, imminent death, but they've lived all their whole life. So
Yeah.
And so it's like you would think that a person who's older, and wiser would have seen everything. What left could there be to fear?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of death, and it comes in such a different a different aspect rather than just old age. It's a nuclear bomb. So
yeah, and going off of that, obviously, I felt that was a fantastic concept, and I never heard of anything like that before. And it was something we could do, which is even more exciting.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's the add-on to the end of that.
Well, it is interesting that and it's true, there aren't really too many end of the world movies. Like you'll see scenes occasionally in something like a Deep Impact where you'll have like a mother father of one of the main characters, and they've sort of kind of accepted the fact that they're not going to survive. But to base an entire film around that, yeah, it is an interesting concept. The film that I was sort of talking about earlier, and that I mentioned in my review that this movie reminded me of, is Andrei Tarkovsky's The Sacrifice. It was his final film as a director. He passed away in '86. It's basically about. Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I think we got you again now, right? Yeah, okay, we got you again now.
Okay. All right. Do I need to back up or anything like that?
I think you were talking about the film, the Vow, right?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the film that I was talking about earlier and mentioned in my review that Sunset reminded me of in a way was a film by Andrei Tarkovsky, who's a Russian filmmaker who passed away in 1986. It was his final film. It was called The Sacrifice, and it was a movie. And was a movie that he made in Sweden with a lot of the same collaborators that Bergman worked with over the years. And it's basically about a group of friends and family who are gathered together for a birthday party, and they hear of the planes going overhead headed towards World War III. And it's basically, and a lot of it focuses on how the characters react. And the main character, played by Erland Josephson, who was one of Bergman's great collaborators as an actor, he basically, it's basically about him trying to make a sacrifice, a spiritual sacrifice, and a spiritual pact to allow his family to survive this, where he will not. And so when I watched Sunset, it definitely reminded me of The Sacrifice. But one of the things that I liked about Sunset, I do like that focuses on, it's more of a real world, real life, how people would actually react to something like this happening, because by the time the story really gets going, there's already been a nuclear attack in Los Angeles. And basically using that as the springboard, you see how the different characters are reacting and what their thought process is as to what they end up doing in the film. And that's one of the things that I really liked about it, is that I felt like it was honest to what that type of situation would be.
Thank you for saying.
Yes, thank you.
I guess in response to that, what's funny is I have never seen The Sacrifice, and I try to go out and see as much as I can, which is important. Trust me, I know. The funny part is that I've actually not only not seen that movie, I've never heard of that movie. It's really funny, and I'm glad you bring it up though, because I want to see it now. Which is weird because I feel like we have another collaborator as well, Louis Ambrosio, that we work with, and I feel like he said, "Oh, right, that movie." This is when we read it in your review, which was great and everything else. And I think on some ways, subconsciously, we all reference things that we may have seen in the past and everything else, and that always happens. It becomes this blender of concepts. I'm sure that was somewheres in his mind, in his in his memory. Because I have to admit, it was not in mine. And so that's fascinating to me, and I love that you brought that up. But also, the movie that we were really looking at was On the Beach with Gregory Peck. That was the one that we were really looking at in terms of how would you tackle this. We did sort of look at the older couple, younger couple scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one we were studying on top of everything else. I think too. So it's interesting that you brought that up. I would definitely say that was, On the Beach was the one we were watching and we were looking
Mm-hmm.
at. I would have loved to have known about The Sacrifice at the time as well.
Yeah.
Just it's so funny how many.
Yeah,
there's so
I'm
many
probably
things.
gonna look that up.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're
so
if you're not terribly familiar with Tarkovsky, he's I love him as a filmmaker, but he can be very difficult to get into because of the fact that his way of filmmaking, his way of storytelling was very very deliberately paced, and
Right.
a lot of the way he told films was it was a commitment. It wasn't just it was very much a commitment. If you're familiar with Bergman, you'll have kind of an idea of the
Right.
type of serious type of storytelling, but Tarkovsky takes that to the next level. And I know a handful of his films are on Criterion, Solaris, Ivan's Childhood, Stalker, and Andrei Rublev, I think, are all available on Criterion Collection.
That's right.
It doesn't really surprise me that you've never necessarily heard of Sacrifice because some filmmakers are not necessarily familiar with Tarkovsky, and I think part of it is because of the fact that he only made 7 films and he passed away in the mid 80s. So it does kind of make sense that
Right.
some people just are not as familiar with him. So but yeah, I'd actually not heard of On the Beach. So yeah, that's actually interesting that you bring that up, and I'm kind of curious to check that out.
No, interesting. Yeah, no, and we love that movie too, On the Beach, as well. No, but thank you. I mean, what's great, I think another great thing about telling stories and I think just being filmmakers and what we are and what we do is that so many people come to us, especially now and everything else, and they say, "Oh, have you seen this?" Or, "Oh, I heard this great story," or, "Oh, I have a great story that I think you should tell." And that's the type of learning process is so great for us
Mm-hmm.
experience because it makes us better in so many ways. So I love that type of exchange, and we appreciate that. That's part of the reason why we even made Film Valor. Is not to say we know what we're doing. Look at us. It was more so to say we could learn a lot more.
Yeah.
So let's go out and we start. We do interviews with people as well, like you do, because there's so much information out there that we want to know and understand. And so that's great. We appreciate you sharing. It's great.
So when you decided to, where did the idea to cast Austin Pendleton, who was probably the only actor in the film I was really aware of before seeing it, where did the idea to cast him from? I mean, it's a great choice. I mean, it's exactly the type of role that you are used to seeing him in. But I was kind of curious how that came about.
Well, I think the interesting thing about the casting in general was, it's just a weird story, but basically we had made the short film on Film Valor with those 2 actors, with Barbara and Liam Mitchell, Barbara Blyer. So they were really gung ho for us to go out and make a feature out of this, and we talked to them at first about it, and we had decided to sort of cast it before we wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange, I guess, but that's what we did. And so we knew the actors that we wanted to play them, including Austin Pendleton. They had been friendly with Austin for years and years and years and years. And there was sort of a conversation, we had met with him prior, If you guys are ever doing something, we know that you did well at Manhattan. We won the Best Feature Film Award at Manhattan Film Festival the year prior with a movie with Michael Rispoli,
Mm-hmm.
who was also friendly with Austin as well and did a play with him. So it kind of just became this sort of natural process where we said, if we can write something for these guys and put Austin, write something for Austin, right. So the part was written for him, and for everybody else, it would probably just work very well, and that wound up lending to some more natural writing, than even we're used to typically, because we knew how these people would talk and how they would interact with each other, and those characters are really a lot like the people playing them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how that developed, which is great. It was really a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm sure part of it was because of budget, but one of the things that I really liked is the fact that you deal almost exclusively with your characters. You don't really bring in the outside world, the outside influence much at all. You don't really bring in a larger social and political aspect to it. It's just basically the emotional toll of these characters in this situation dealing with what is kind of the beginning of the end, possibly the end of their lives, or at least the end of this life and the beginning of a new one in some cases. And what was that basically was it basically just the idea of wanting to deal with that particular aspect of it that was that sort of led you down that particular path of the way of telling this story?
You want to speak to this one?
Yeah, no, I mean,
there's a lot to say.
Yeah, me and Jamison were never really, we never totally go in saying, oh, we need the budget to do this or whatever. And especially for Sunset, I think the main point we wanted to establish is that this is their homes. Mm-hmm. This is where they feel safe. And you could have a moment where they go to the supermarket and there's that little bit of relief or whatever, but this is it's supposed to be their struggle, their fear within something that's supposed to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to really show the chaos really in the streets, because it's pretty much a given. You could almost it's almost like it's required. So to have them kind of confined to limited locations and just not really showing the outside world really kept you in their moments.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's only like really a couple times where you actually kind of really see different locations, probably about three different times.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to go any further than that, really.
Yeah.
It just would have required.
I think one of the interesting things too that was brought up in a lot of the reviews, which I've actually was very happy that people were so responsive to, because I think in some ways it was a risk, but it was the better risk to take. We did not want to get into the politics of the situation,
mm-hmm.
as well as how it happened to a greater degree. It was important that that threat was in any research we had done and any imagining of the situation. Basically, it became clear that no matter who does what, everybody loses.
Mm-hmm.
So we had kind of realized, without pointing a finger at anyone, it's everybody's problem. And we can get away with that in the right way without having to say it was this, it was these people, it was those people.
It's a people problem,
right? So therefore, if we gave the characters in the beginning, these sort of these opposite ends of the spectrum as well, anybody that's in the audience would say, you know what, I relate to that person, or I understand that person's perspective, and we don't have to completely agree with any of them. And another level of that as well is that those opinions, which I think is sort of expressed by Chris, which is in a sort of simple, straightforward way, probably don't matter, and that was another thing as well that we wanted to get across, that these people are so helpless to this situation, and it will affect them at home, that that it was, it seemed like the obvious choice once we had gone through a very extensive process of trying to figure that out.
Well, and one of the things, and yeah, you mentioned the at the very beginning is in the very beginning in that uh, conflict between Henry and Julian is really the only time that you bring that sort of larger political idea out and that larger possible discussion out. And one of the thing I think the thing that I like the most about that is because it's not just you come to realize that it's not just about the differing political vantage points that they're coming from, but it's also about this larger tension between the three of them that has
Yeah.
been sort of building up over the years. And that's one of the things that is really is it's really a smart way of getting even more into the story and by focusing even more into the story so that when you have those scenes later where Julian shows up before he ends up leaving the picture, it gives that an even greater impact.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, that was I guess just to go off that briefly, that was those three had been working together for so long. I think it sort of came out of naturally, in different capacities. Barbara and Austin do a show together, different things, and I think when we started to sit down to write it, we realized that there was just such a strong relationship between the three of them and how much they care about each other's work and everything else that it almost seemed obvious or necessary almost to play on that and it would be even better if he was defending his space, Henry. And it sort of establishes the fact that he feels he needs to do that. So yeah, no, I appreciate the acknowledgement of that. And I think it did add another level to it that we weren't expecting at first either. That they played so brilliantly too. And there's so many different levels of that happening within what Julian wants or what he doesn't want or what he thinks he can do. And do Henry and him talk about that at any point? That stuff that really started to open it up and make it more interesting for the audience as well. I felt, yeah.
So, I haven't really followed it too much. How so now that you do have, I know you have distribution, you have it coming out in July. Have you guys had it taking it to film festivals and all that, and what has been sort of the build up to this coming release?
Yeah, you want to tell them about, I guess, Manhattan?
Yeah, Manhattan. We won, I guess, best feature drama.
Best feature drama at Manhattan Film Festival, which we're very excited about.
We had a very good turnout. We had pretty much everybody loved the ending.
Yeah, there's a lot of surprise about that. Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've won a couple of other awards for acting as well, which is really those guys are fantastic. So we're happy for them. David Johnson won an award at the International Independent Film Awards. He won it for best leading actor, and also we won a best ensemble award at the Los Angeles Film Awards. We were nominated best feature at Miami's Independent Film Festival as well, International Independent Film Festival. And we just sort of I would say that we're just in the midst of that journey. We're still going. We're sort of in the middle of all that. And there are a few more right on the horizon that we're excited about. Part of the thing about, releasing quickly and stuff like that was that we were going to accept a shorter festival run. So we were more aggressive in doing things that were sort of local, that were logical to us, and spaces that we thought worked. And we've gotten to know the circuit a lot better through the course of doing other movies and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we still have some stuff or some festivals that are upcoming that we're excited about as well.
I'm very busy.
Yeah, it's been busy. It's been definitely been busy. The press has been great, so we've been also been on top of that. And our distributor in the Orchard has been very excited seeing the positive feedback, and I think they're on a smaller movie, I guess we could say, like this. I think they're sort of surprised by how much people are really thinking about the characters, writing about the characters, writing about the acting, talking about the various elements. So it's been great, really great. It's been an honor, really has been.
Okay. Well, what other you guys mentioned Film Valor earlier, and that is on YouTube, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, that's our YouTube channel. You go right into YouTube, type in Film Valor, and we'll come right up with all of our videos and everything.
Okay, and what type of videos do you guys have you guys been focusing on mainly there?
You want to go into?
Yeah, no, we're just mainly focusing on some tips and key information to help the independent filmmaker, and to really open it up to the independent filmmaker that there's a bigger world out there with a lot of connections and people who are willing to work with you, and also that you don't have to you don't have to be pulling money out of your bank account left and right to make a little short film or whatever.
Yeah.
You just have to you just have to have the commitment and the right tools, not the most expensive ones or whatever, in order to to make something that is a good product.
Yeah.
Okay, and Jamison, I know you sent me another film recently to watch, and that one is already released, The Depths.
Yes.
Where can people find that one?
So people can find The Depths right now on Amazon as well, on iTunes, actually on DVD. It's available for purchase right now. They've been talking to us about it being available for purchase on Amazon DVD directly, but also through Barnes & Noble, I believe they've been talking about right now. Okay. And it starts to go into these other stores as well very soon, prior to them doing their cable push, their next steps. But yeah, we're very excited about The Depths. Adam was the composer on that.
Okay.
I was the director, the writer, and that was really sort of the beginning of us saying, like, let's go out and make features.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's on Xbox too. It's on Vudu, Google Play, iTunes. We said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been all over the place. It's getting great write-ups as well. Actually, we got a great review from Film Threat, which is kind of mind blowing because they're a big website, but they gave it an A rating. And they really liked a lot of the elements of it. So 4 or 5 years of work it's great to see that.
Where did the idea for The Depths come from?
The Depths is an interesting one as well, and I say it's very different because of the fact that essentially I had the concept about a year or two prior to actually me and myself and Robert Spat sitting down and writing the script. I thought it would be interesting to talk about two people that are competitive as artists, and to see if you could do that as a thriller, which sounds like a ridiculous basis for a movie, but it seemed right for some reason. It seemed like the thing to pursue, but I couldn't find anything to attach to it. What was very beautiful, actually, about that process and letting it sit for a little while, I was taking a genre class at the time. And I had started to, on my own, study film noir film, and seeing In a Lonely Place and seeing Maltese Falcon and Double Indemnity and all those movies. Suddenly, that idea from so long ago clicked into place, and I said, "Okay, this would be absolutely incredible if it can be done the right way." To see what that sort of process is like now of writing a script and doing something, but to be treating it like a thriller, straight up. And I was, sort of simultaneously, I was researching for a director's first films, like Aronofsky's, we have Pi, and we have Nolan's Following, and we had Carruth's, I'm saying that probably wrong, Primer. But I was researching a lot of those movies, and I started to see through lines that they were thrillers, but they were psychological thrillers. They had done that out of for budget reasons in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So that's really all those cross sections and all that time. I brought all of that to Robert Spat, and I said, we got to write this thing. I think it'd be fantastic if we just sit down and really figure this out. That's really how it started.
Okay, and yeah, you mentioned one of my absolute favorite Bogart film noirs and In a Lonely Place.
Yes.
I absolutely love that one. And I can, when you bring it up, I definitely do see the inspiration with that one. I think it's a fantastic movie.
Yes.
Adam, as a composer, I've actually done composing myself. Not necessarily. I've done a couple short films for friends and stuff, but mostly I've done some of my own music. What sort of what sort of brought you into composing?
Um, I started out when I was like 12 or 13. You know, I got into rock music or whatever. So I started playing guitar, and, then it kind of like I just spent a couple years doing that. I can't read music, or I
Mhm.
never put the time in to do it. So I just had to learn things by ear, YouTube and whatnot. And eventually, I met Jamison, and he wanted to do, films. And I said, it kind of turned out that, I could compose them, which was
Yeah.
something that I wanted to do. Because eventually, if it wasn't that, I wanted to join a band, and I really wanted to do something in music.
Mhm.
The music was going to be, it all, begin all and end all. And eventually, it turned out that, maybe not just play guitar. Maybe I could do some piano work, and maybe I could do stuff on the computer with different synths and all that stuff.
Mhm.
The and that's really came from. I mean, I grew up on music along with movies. Movies and music
Yeah.
were they're like everything to me. So it really came natural to wanting to do composing, and luckily, Jameson gave me the opportunity, to do that back in 2012. When we did our first movie,
Midnight Catch.
Midnight Catch, and ever since then, I've been really thankful for being able to do both. Being
Yeah.
maker and do the composing. I mean, that's really a dream come true for a lot of people.
Okay.
So
Is some of your music on Film Valor or?
yeah, I did the intro. I also did. We did a Star Wars parody.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was
Yeah. I want to expand on this as well. That just to say, and also to make it clear too. Sorry, that's the dogs. Adam has done the music from our first movie all the way through now. So that's both feature films. That's every episode, every episode of Film Valor, and there's about 56 of them now. Um, uh, uh, the opening titles for that, of course, any short films we've done. And so it's really been a great process working with him doing the music, because I believe, and so many other people do too, they'll stop us and say this music is fantastic, and it really suits the story and everything else, and he really is a great composer as well. So it's great to have somebody on your team that does that and has those talents and those skills, because it's a world that I don't understand at all. Um, and so he lent so much to The Depths and Sunset, both as features, but for all the way back to the shorts. The movies wouldn't be the same without them in terms of establishing the tone and everything else. And I really do believe it's half the movie. So
Yeah.
it was always important to us, and he's always done a great job. So yeah, he's done. There's so much work out there that's available on through Film Valor, but also in these features that are his original pieces.
Mhm.
And he has a great process of the way he works on them, and he'll present something that's oftentimes I'm looking at whatever the first thing is that he's doing, and it's always shocking to me how on the money it is. I think there's just an understanding of it that he has that's natural, and I'm always impressed by it. I'll be really honest with you. I'm no BS. I'm always impressed by that. I don't understand it, and that's great. That's one of the great things about filmmaking is there's people that have skills that you don't, and so I just want to make sure I put that in there as well.
I think that's like the the yin and yang, if you would call it, to it, is that me and Jameson we think kind of the same, but we take different approaches, very different approaches. So it's kind of like a missing puzzle piece of creativity. And like he could tell me, all right, this is what I'm thinking for the music or whatever, and he'll just tell me like a good 2 minutes about what he wants it to feel like. I'm like, all right, and I'll spend literally all night just trying to because I have to convince myself that that's what he wants. And so I'll just spend like the whole night just going through things, and and it clicks. So,
Yeah, it's great.
Just good communication.
It's a great process to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like watching an actor perform or something like that. It's just a great thing to watch. It really is.
Are there any particular musicians or composers who have inspired you?
Oh yeah. Great. Well, I think when I picked up a guitar, I think it was Ace Frehley from Kiss. I would have to say he was probably my first inspiration to get an instrument. I like Hans Zimmer. Yeah. Let me see. Carpenter. Yeah, John Carpenter. I like his stuff too.
Yeah.
I like it. I like some old bluesy stuff like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah, everyone from Al Green all the way up to death metal, pretty much. Anything. I could listen to anything.
I want to also interject another quick story too about Adam's music abilities, which is another, again, thank the Lord we have that skill set on our team. But Adam also does the music supervision, or he's also a music supervisor, so he can go out and find songs for a movie as well. We had a short film, just short of Sidekick, and we had given, just showed him the movie essentially, and we want you to find 6 or 7 songs that match this. I think he came back in like maybe 30 minutes. I think it was less. Maybe it was 20 minutes. And he had 7 songs lined up. And I just put them in. I said, oh my God, these fit. Like, not only do they fit, but they fit beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an amazing process of seeing that. So he also has a very large knowledge of music and finding music as well. So that's another skill set that he has that has also been worked in throughout the movies. So he composed the score for Sunset, but he also went out and found the music that's on the radios and stuff. So that whole score and those things are put together by, not him listening and finding things, but also him then creating them as well, which is great. It's really great.
Well, now that these films are getting into release, what do you guys have coming up next?
Yeah, so we've been developing. We actually have 3 screenplays, feature film screenplays that we've been working on and developing, and we have one that we're very excited about that we're sort of bringing to the forefront, and we have that working title is Conviction, and that's a thriller that we're working on. That's really probably would be our next thing that we want to go into. We're just developing that right now and putting it together. It's in those early stages, but having these movies behind us really helps, of course. People start to see, having distribution really helps as well. All those things that really get the ball rolling in a way that we couldn't do quickly prior to doing the depths. So it's that's really what we're doing next. And we're also continuing Film Valor, and all those adventures as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the time today. It was really great to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Jamison, Locascio, and Adam Ambrosio for their time today. It was a lot of fun to talk to them and to get an idea of their careers overall and what got them started and what led them to make Sunset and The Depths. Coming up, I should have a couple more movie breakdowns coming up soon. Hopefully one with the new Planet of the Apes movie, which I know I've been kind of teasing for the past few months, it seems, but I promise it's going to come. And as well as a dear friend of mine, I talking about a film that means a lot to me and really encapsulates a lot of things that I value in that particular friendship. So that's coming up on the Sonic Cinema podcast, as well as more filmmaker interviews and more film breakdowns. For now, join us at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. For $3 or more, you're going to get a lot of content, a lot of exclusive audio and video content. And join us always at www.sonic-cinema.com. This is Brian Scuttle, and thank you for joining me.